person that to go home immediately and prepare 6 months of food and water for her family. I just wanted to know what you think about that.
Well, I know who Lindsay Williams was talking about. I separately knew about the person and asked him if that was her, and he said yes. And I believe Lindsay, does talk to these sources and say that. But, just like the feds early last year in January were telling emergency managers and police heads all over the country that the flu was going to kill millions before it popped up, they tend to use fear on. This lady's also an elected representative you're talking about. They use fear to kind of get them to go along with it. Like there's been over 100 that we know of staged terror attacks in the United States in the last 9 years that were never announced on the news. But police are given quiet national security clearances so they can't go talk about it, not because it's really classified, but because it's baloney. Kind of like they're giving national security clearances right now to all the TSA workers. That's so they can keep secret really what they're doing and the abuse, and so the TSA workers can't complain about being screwed around and things. Now that said, I'm not saying we couldn't start a war with Iran or the economy may not go into depression. It's just the feds are constantly running around, telling people this is going to happen, that's going to happen, as a way to use crisis to get people to go along with them. So I don't doubt that lady told Lindsay Williams that. I just have seen the feds use, and they're not even feds, global manipulators, using staged crises to get people to go along with them. The crisis is here. The tyranny is here. The looting is here. The depression is here. And so don't look for some big announcement to come. It's just going to be a slow slide into it. They may stage something down the road, other key events, we know they do that. It's just generally when they tell you something's going to happen, it doesn't happen. When you can tell they're going to do something is when you see the preconditioning on the news. That's when you got to worry. And we are hurtling towards some major stage crises. I just don't know about, get ready for some, huge implosion next week. That's a great question. Let's go ahead and go to you, sir. Go ahead.
Eric from Salt Lake City. CAFR, I don't hear much about it anymore. Can you briefly summarize what happened to the CAFR, which is the Comprehensive Annual Financial Reports that we have?
Sure. Comprehensive Annual Financial Reports. I had Walter Buren on just a few months ago, one of the people exposing it. Anybody can just search their local county, city, school district, water district, power district, Comprehensive Annual Financial Reports. When you hear about budgets in government, you're only hearing about the money that's actually being spent on local services. You're not hearing generally about 2/3 of the money being invested off the books. So it's like a mafia second set of books. And governments have become fabulously wealthy, and the private individuals, city managers and others that ran that would then be given payoffs and jobs later to go along with it. But through the derivative scam, the globalists have stolen most of that money and are now shutting down city governments or curtailing them and then putting them under pressure to follow federal guidelines or to get federal funds. So it's just basically a giant scam. But the governments have giant slush funds the public hasn't been told about. Comprehensive Annual Financial Reports. I put a documentary out on that subject. Go ahead, ma'am.
Yeah, as much as I'd like to, Alex, I cannot listen to all your broadcasts. And so I may be repeating something, but one of the issues I would really love to see you cover more is the electronic voting machines, because you get good candidates on and people call in, and we just heard about Shalene. But unless we really address who's counting the votes and how they're being counted, and there's some great researchers out there, and I'd love to hear them on your show.
Well, I've had Bev Harris on probably 30 times.
I missed it.
Yeah, but I go through guests in phases, and I do have a blind spot. When I've covered something 100 times, I tend to, about a year or two ago, I realized I haven't covered fluoride in a couple of years because I've probably done 100 shows on it. I better do it again because the audience is a lot larger and more diverse. But there is a lot of electronic voting machine fraud, and they do use it in key races, and Republicans are cheated, Democrats are cheated. It's mainly used to keep third-party and alternative candidates out. And they've had major executives of these companies go public and say it's all a fraud, and they die in plane crashes or shoot themselves in the head. If they'll shoot up, people in the U.S. and children in Guatemala with syphilis, and they'll radiate foster kids to death in this country on record. I mean, of course, they'll steal elections, but that's a great point. Thank you. Go ahead, sir.
Yes, sir. In recent months on your show, you've talked about going to the stars and how much of the aviation and technology that is in the public domain is 30 to 40 years behind the state of the art. Another individual who has examined this topic in great detail is Dr. Stephen Greer. And my question is, what is the intersection of your research and Dr. Stephen Greer's regarding those advances in energy, propulsion, and aviation?
Well, thank you. I should probably interview Dr. Stephen Greer. I haven't. I'm a little bit familiar with his work. I just know the government says that a plane in service in 1955, the SR-71 Blackbird's the fastest aircraft we have. I know that they had the B-2 bomber for 20 years before they unveiled it. I know that the technology we're given is basically obsolete. A lot of people speculate, and it gets into some wild stuff. I don't know. I mean, I can't get a lot of the public to admit that there's the Emergency Centers Act for FEMA camps for the American people. I mean, it's on record, it's mainstream news, FEMA camps, and I can't get people to admit that. So I don't really, get off into speculation about exactly what all this advanced technology is. I just know top globalist thinkers write books and chortle about it all and talk about all the things they're given, that they're privy to, but then they don't basically tell us. My issue is a lot is going on we don't know about, and we need to know about that. We need to start finding out about that and have more people leak information concerning that. But there have been hundreds of trillions of dollars in the last 60, 70 years in the aggregate stolen as part of black budget programs. I mean, hammers are not costing $700 at the Pentagon. And all of that money's not being stolen. It's being put into secret programs, like the underground base program and things we know exist. All right, we got about 15 minutes left. Let's accelerate through your great questions. Go ahead, sir.
Alex, I appreciate when you have guests talk about the Federal Reserve, the economy, and the constitutional issues. I have not heard you talk about the book, They Own It All, Including You, by Virtue of Toxic Currency, which was written by Ronald McDonald, not the Hamburger Clown, Ronald McDonald and Dr. Robert Brogan. I would love to actually hear you have them on as guests. I did give a copy of the book to Ted Anderson earlier for you. I would hope that you could please take a look at it.
Well, I would love to meet Ronald McDonald. So
he doesn't dress in the hamburger suit. He's a real person.
Hey, I know they own it all, including us, but I'm telling them they may have gotten it through fraud, but they don't own me. There's a gremlin here. Hey, I talk bad about Ronald McDonald, and look at what happened. Ronald McDonald in the sky, running satellites. No, it sounds interesting, sir. Sounds interesting. Go ahead.
Just want to say, drove 6 hours, come to see you the first time I've ever seen you live. I don't get KCO, but I have that iPhone app. It's best free thing about that phone. But anyways, so great job you making that one. And the fact that I can cover $10.80, thank you guys. That's amazing.
Well, I'll tell you why KSCO is so good. It's an independent station owned by an independent guy, Michael Zwirling, who when he was in high school was on the radio station. It's one of the only stations in the country, I just got a tour of it, actually built according to RCA specifications to be a real radio studio. They usually stick radio stations in, something wasn't built for it. It's an amazing place, and it's privately owned, it's individually owned, he owns 2 radio stations, and that's what America needs to get back to, not 2 or 3 giant corporations owning it. More radio stations would be like KSCO if we didn't have these big transnationals owning it and controlling it. The airwaves do belong to the people. And I believe in private property, and I believe in individuals owning groups of stations. Go ahead.
I'm the proud father of a 1-year-old little girl, and I'm proud to say that I haven't given her 1 vaccine.
I haven't vaccinated mine either, brother.
Now this question is from my mother-in-law, who's an avid listener of Alex Jones.
I texted her during the message earlier, and I was drawing a blank, so this is from her. Is there any protection against HARP mind control, and what can we do not to be controlled?
Okay, HARP is highly classified, and I've actually got the director of HARP on. It was like 3 years ago. I got a call from the Pentagon. The director of HARP would like to come on your show. You just search Alex Jones interviews director of HARP, and they had this Air Force colonel on during the breaks, telling him what he could and couldn't say, and I was like, well, you guys wanted to come on this show, and I still don't know why, but that was before Jesse went up there. But he starts talking about, we even ignite the atmosphere on fire some evenings. And they cut him off, and at break, the colonel comes on and says, you can't get into that. As for mind control, DARPA that invented the internet wasn't Al Gore, folks. He's a fraud. And it's admitted he didn't invent it. The guy's a lunatic. Man, bear, pig. But to make a long story short, DARPA, it had to be like in '99, it was in the Baltimore Sun, said, yes, because they put these trial balloons out. Yes, we are testing antenna arrays in major cities during crises to calm the public with these magnetic frequency systems they tested on rodents and other things. That's all patented. So you do have stuff in the literature by them where they talk about how they're going to help us. We're already in so much frequency pollution. That's the great thing about humans. If you think cockroaches become immune to poison in a couple generations, what about us? I think we're a lot tougher than the mighty cockroach. So, and when you're aware that you're powerful, it doesn't matter how much mind control there is, you're going to beat it. Okay, because the globalists got to live in this system they've created themselves. So, yeah, there is a lot of frequency manipulation going on, and a lot of it is admitted. And I've seen a lot of stuff about HARP, up in Alaska engaged in mind control. And I think it's more of a weather modification / over-the-horizon radar system. But HARP is only one of many arrays, and it's a really good question. Go ahead.
My name's Thor, Monterey. I'm involved with a local group that's trying to stop PG&E from installing smart meters.
Hey, that was in my speech. I never got to it. That was in my speech. I never got to it.
I'd like to see you just comment on, there's a lot of concerns about privacy and health concerns with the smart meters. So if you can elaborate on your concerns with those, I'd really appreciate it.
I sort of never got to these 4 pages. This is something I skipped on the front page. We help the system enslave us. Smart house, smart cars, smart meters, threat fusion centers, rental car place, spy at counter database, TSA secondary checks. I did cover that. School kids trained to spy, compartmentalization. I covered that stuff, but I didn't cover these 3. In fact, I started the story, and it's not really prepared, so I meandered. I talked about flying in and seeing the TSA searching everybody, and then secondary searches. But then once I landed in San Francisco, it's like 11 o'clock at night. I've been up since 5 a.m. my time. So it's like 1 a.m. my time, Austin time. I still got to drive up to Bohemian Grove, another infiltration, but that's also later. I narrowly made it here. Okay? The other people got arrested, and I can't talk about it right now. But the point is, well, I have my reasons. The point is, I was like an Aquaman in the river getting away. So. Anyway, that was a frog man getting out of there. But anyways, finishing the story so folks can go home. I come up to the counter before getting to smart meters and smart houses, and there's this nice 20-year-old lady behind the counter. But she's really into how she's been trained in this corporate system. And I watch about 5 people in front of me getting rental cars. They're all exhausted, families going up. One group had kids with them. And she's like, hi, oh. And she's getting their stuff. She's like, where are you going? What you doing? She's asking me. Of course, I know under Patriot Act compliance that it's school teachers, not just cops, rental car places, banks. They're all trained to spy on you. When you go to have a baby at the hospital, they say, you got enough money? Oh, your husband's out of the room. Is he mean to you? They don't tell you they're putting it all in a database.